All right, let's move on to the next game, and that was number 24 Tulsa at 6-2 versus Mississippi State at 3-7. That was Thursday, December the 31st at noon on ESPN. That was a Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl from M.on.G. Carter Stadium in Fort Worth, Texas. Mississippi State won this one 28-26, and nobody got the point once again because we didn't have any faith in them. But to be honest, they didn't really give us any reason to. So at least for the majority of the season. So interesting to watch this game and how Tulsa really just kind of dominated the stats. If you look at it, 484 total yards to State's 271, 27 first downs for Tulsa to Mississippi State's 16. But those two turnovers, huge, and the deciding factor in this one, obviously, as one of them at the end of the third quarter was a 90-yard pick six by Emmanuel Forbes. So in a day that was, surrounded by a lot of rainfall and such, points were kind of at a premium. So they took advantage definitely there. Look, first off, I want to say a huge win for Mississippi State and Mike Leach on this one. Mm-hmm. Matt, I want to start with you first on this one and your thoughts just on this win by State and Mike Leach.
Let's be honest here. Mississippi State's had a rough season, a very, very rough season. They stumbled out of the gate. They didn't look very good most of the season. And then to cap it off with a win over a top 25 bowl opponent, I call that a pretty successful thing. I'm trying to figure out how in the heck Tulsa got 484 yards of total offense and still lost this game, because that makes no sense to me whatsoever. Right. I didn't have a chance to watch it or the highlights, but golly, like if you're putting that many yards up, you shouldn't be struggling like that.
Turnovers.
The turnover,
it's going to be a theme actually in these next several games. Turnovers key. So, sorry, continue.
No, that was it. I was saying I don't understand how you have that many yards and still come up short. But right. I mean, big win for Leach, big win for the program. The ending made things a little yeah, because we'll talk about that in a second. And it's just, but I mean, still something to build on. I mean, if you had told me that they were going to have a bowl win over a top 25 team at the end of the season, I would have laughed at you. I'd have been like, no, that's not happening. Not this Mississippi State team. You must be thinking of another Mississippi State team from like 10 years ago, because that ain't happening. But it did.
And that's an excellent point. And Jesse, it's a huge building block building towards next season, right? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, you need that to help with recruiting, because let's be honest, the rest of the season is not going to help with recruiting, right? The thing that's going to get people to Mississippi State, because I'll be honest, I've been to Starkville. There's not a lot that would get me to go to Starkville. You need a personality like Mike Leach. You need players that gel with him, gel with his offense, which hopefully he can get in, because right now, as we've seen this season, not his players, not necessarily gelling with his style of offense. But you need that top 25 bowl win to say, hey, we're improving. We won against a top 25 opponent. We finished the season strong. You need something to help that recruiting, because otherwise you're just going to see another season like you did this past year going into the 2021 season. But are we going to talk about the fight? Because
huge brawl at the end. And honestly, I kept trying to find out. I kept trying to find out like how it even started, and apparently
didn't even know.
I was gonna say it seemed like it was just back and forth, and it just
before the game.
Something
happened pre-game.
They were chippy throughout the game, and
he said he thinks it's something that happened before the game.
Yeah.
And he would need to watch the film to figure out what happened. But a player from Tulsa came off the field with a concussion after being in the bottom of the dog pile,
right,
where an article said they were
kicking
each other.
Yeah. Well, interesting comments from Mike Leach after the game. I want to play those, and then immediately following those comments is some comments that Kirk Herbstreit made about Leach's post-game interview, and it's really interesting. So I want you guys to hear it.
By the way, Herbie.
Well, I mean, this is a football game, so we're not going to be tearing cloth over this deal. I mean, somebody went to a football game and somebody got hit. I mean, there's a point where I'm not going to lose my mind over it, but I just don't like that, we were undisciplined at some situations where I thought if you control yourself mentally and emotionally, you put yourself in a better position.
Mike Leach should be embarrassed. His post-game interview and what he said, hey, it's football. Hey, it's physical. It's going to happen. Are you kidding me, Mike? You should be embarrassed about your program and what it did. And then after the game, the guy's being proud, high-fiving, walking off. This is a black eye for the sport. Maybe you don't care about the sport, dude. I mean, it's as bad as it could be watching that for people that are sitting around watching college football and that breaks out. I mean, it's just another black eye for college football.
Woo, man, some.
Listen, I need somebody to get the sugar because that is the tea, baby. Good Lord.
Vaj.
God almighty.
I don't even know what to say after that.
All in.
As I say,
usually not a huge Kirk fan. Yes.
Yeah, that was I was somewhat surprised.
That and apply it to Dan Mullen. I could apply it to Mike Leach. Maybe I'm wrong. Do you guys remember this many fights or stupidity happening in college football in previous seasons in recent years? Yeah. I just don't feel like we had this many fights or stupid stuff.
I remember was it Oregon Boise State where the guy sucker punched the guy in the head? He was standing right next to him. I don't even remember who that was. And
what was the brawl down in Coral Gables when Miami played FAU or FIU or one of those other Florida schools? Like 15, no, one FAMU. Like 15 years ago, a guy is meleeing into this giant pile of people with a helmet. I mean,
right.
It happens.
I know it happens. I just feel like we've gotten more this year. Maybe it's just because I've had nothing else to focus on but college football. There's nothing else happening in the world other than destruction. So it just seems amplified. But I agree with Herbie. It's, again, as a coach, you have to condemn this kind of behavior. You have to teach your players, and I'm going to sound like Butch Jones, and I hate to do it, but to not only be good players, but good people. That is part of your job. You spend more time with them than anybody else. So to set a tone in a locker room, you need to condemn this kind of behavior. You are no longer a 15-year-old playing high school sports. You are on a national stage and you are adults. Legally, you're all adults. Act like it. I don't know what started it. I don't know what happened, but you got to act like it. And then they're 20-year-olds. As a coach, you got to say, can't have that behavior. Can't have it. Don't say it's football. That's not football.
Well, and especially as he's trying to build a winning culture, I mean, that kind of undisciplined behavior is going to lose you football games. So to just excuse it and say, oh, well, it's football, guys are going to get hit. That's the kind of dismissiveness that's just going to let your guys continue in this behavior, and it's not going to be good. Obviously, it's bad for the people who get punched, in a fight like this. But I mean, even in terms of just football games, it's going to come back to bite you eventually. So I don't know.
Nobody's mama is going to encourage them to go to a program that a coach is like, they'll get punched a little bit.
Right. Yeah.
Parents have a voice in where their children go. I mean, it's up to the kids ultimately. But if you don't think their parents are in their ears, you're wrong.
Right. Yep.